Hello and welcome to today's webinar from the OGTC. My name is Susan Brimmer and I'm the People and Organisation Manager here at the OGTC. And today, two of my colleagues, Scott and James, are going to take us through a session looking at how we can connect and communicate safely online. The reason why we've pulled together this session is because we know that during the coronavirus, we haven't been able to see our friends and family, and communicating for many of us is not an issue because we know how to use the technology. But for some of our family members, this has been something quite new, and some of them have really struggled to get online and to know which platforms to use and how to use them safely. So today, if we just move on to our next slide. Today, James and Scott will take you through some key hints and tips. And we're going to start off with Scott, who's going to take you through some tips on how to get online safely and simply, and then look at some of the key platforms, communication platforms, and the best devices to use for going online. We'll then move on to James, who's going to point out some of the dangers of going online and how to avoid them, and then signpost to where you can get help. I think we're just about ready to go. James and Scott, anything you'd like to add before we get going?
No, I'm happy to get started.
Happy to get started. Great. Your time starts now.
Okay. Hi everybody, I'm Scott. You'll have to apologize if you can see me. Got my lockdown haircut, so I've got my hat on here. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of just some of the technical setup of getting someone online, helping someone to get online and making things as simple as possible. And then I'm going to kind of go into the detail on some of the applications, some of the software that you can use. So very much the first part of this is about the hardware, and then we're going to get into the actual software side of things. So keeping things simple. So about 10 years ago, I used to work in a sort of residential setting. So I used to work with the elderly and people that really didn't have that much of a clue about technology. And I would go to their homes and their houses and help them get set up and online. And this was all before things like tablets and iPads were available. It was really just when they were starting to become available. So everyone still had to use desktop computers or laptops to get online. And back then, and still to this day, you still have the option to use a desktop computer or a laptop. Now, I'm going to tell you some of the reasons why maybe that's actually not a good idea, and you should maybe look at setting up a tablet-based device for someone that's getting online for the first time. So one of the main things with setting up a laptop or a desktop in the home is you need a series of different things before you can get online with it. So you need to have a phone line, you need to have internet, you need to have a router set up, then that router needs to have some sort of Wi-Fi capability, and then finally you need that laptop or computer. And all of these things take time to set up and support, and you might need to get someone in to help you or help the individual that you're trying to help get set up with that. And they also, there is a cost associated with that as well. So a much simpler solution is a tablet-based device. So if we can go to the next slide, please, James. There are many tablets on the market. So this is something like an example is an iPad or an Android-based device, like in the slide here, which is the Fire a tablet by Amazon. Now, the beauty of a tablet-based device is you can get what's known as a cellular option, and basically the cellular option allows you to have an internet connection on that tablet device just using the mobile network. Now, the beauty of that is the fact that you don't need a phone line, you don't need a router, you don't need Wi-Fi, you literally just need the device and a SIM card to get going with it. So when it comes to keeping things simple, I always suggest to people that are maybe new to technology or just getting their head around technology for the first time, check out a tablet-based device. I'm a bit of an Apple fanboy. I never used to be, so I used to use the Android-based tablets, and I moved over to Apple for simplicity. Now, you will pay a premium, for example, with an Apple-based device, but there are some key benefits to that. The benefits to an Android-based device is usually the cost, so you can get a fairly low-cost device, and you have much more selection on the market when it comes to Android-based devices. They are the kind of the two different devices that you can go down. The benefits to an iPad, apart from probably the hardware itself, so there's usually a little bit more quality on that device, you'll find that the support on the device is usually a little bit better. And that's really just down to how you can actually get support for the device. If you're getting stuck with things, you can actually just walk in to the Apple shop. But as I say, there are a number of pros and cons to both devices, but just make sure if you are looking at a tablet, if you are going to go down this route and keeping things simple, make sure that either tablet has the cellular connection. Now, the majority of tablets, when you purchase a tablet, it will come just with Wi-Fi capability. It won't actually come with the cellular capability. So when you go to purchase that, if you're looking for that device, make sure that you ask the person, or if you're buying it on the web, make sure you're looking at the cellular-based option. And both Android and iPad, Apple have those options on all of their devices. If we can go to the next slide, please, James. So once you've got that device, you obviously need to get a SIM card for it. So that's the same type of thing that you would put in your mobile phone, either a pay-as-you-go SIM card or a contract. You can get some very low-cost contract SIM cards now, around about £10 a month. You can get a large amount of data on that contract. The best place to go to find the best deals is a website called Hot UK Deals. They have a SIM-only information portal, and you can go in there and you can find the best deals, and it's updated on a regular basis. What I would say with whatever, you might find a really excellent deal, so you might see something at maybe like £5 per month for a data connection. What to be wary of with those sort of lower price connections is the network and also the data that is provided on them. So the 3 or 4 major networks in the UK at the moment, so you've got O2, you've got 3, EE and Vodafone. They're the major networks, and all the other networks that provide SIM cards are usually secondary networks. So they kind of piggyback onto the main network. So you'll get a better deal, but the data and the support around those lower price deals won't be as good as one of the other networks, the main network operators. The other thing that you can see in this slide is that you should actually, before you go and choose a network and a deal, is actually check your coverage. So wherever this iPad is going to be, or this tablet's going to be, the Android-based tablet, wherever you're mainly going to be using it, make sure that you've actually got a good network coverage, so a good data coverage. Now, you can go on to, there's the Ofcom website, and you can put in the postcode of where you're going to be using the device, and it'll actually tell you the best sort of data coverage for that area. So which network has the best coverage. In bigger cities like, you know, Aberdeen, bigger towns, you don't have to worry so much. But if you're in a rural location, you'll usually find that there'll only be maybe 1 or 2 of the major operators, mobile operators, that actually work in that area. So always be wary of your coverage, and the coverage map can be really useful for that. If I can get the next slide, please, James. So just a brief mention out to training and support on devices. You can, this applies to Apple-based devices. So one of the main benefits, as I mentioned earlier, is that you can actually just walk into Union Square, and there's the Apple shop there at Union Square, and you can actually get in-person training on devices. So if there's something that you're stuck with, or something the individual that you're trying to help set up is stuck with, or if they're just needing to learn on something, then you would want to check out that offer from Apple, and it's part of their support. That's why you pay a little bit more money. If you're going down the Android route, then I would highly suggest you look at somewhere like YouTube, where you can find how-to videos on pretty much anything under the sun, but you'll find how-to videos on your Android device or your iPad device. So if you can't leave the home, if you're shielding or something like that, then certainly YouTube is probably going to be the best place to go for that. And you can actually see on the slide here the YouTube logo. It's second in from the left down the bottom there, or it's actually very bottom right actually on that tablet as well. So next slide, please, James. So getting into the actual software on the tablet itself, or the apps as they're called, there are 4 main apps for speaking with others. So if you're trying to connect with friends and family, you may already be aware of these apps, but I'm going to kind of weigh up the benefits of the apps and which ones work in which scenarios. So probably the one that I personally speak to the rest of my family with, and I've got family of all sort of age ranges, is Facebook Messenger. And the reason that we use the Facebook Messenger is because almost everyone has a Facebook account, and Facebook Messenger allows for video and audio calls. So you can directly call on video via the tablet or even your phone, family members and friends. The other one, the shout out, is FaceTime. So you'll get a higher quality of call on FaceTime. The video and audio is really clear on FaceTime calls. However, it is only Apple-based devices. So if you have an Android-based devices, you are kind of locked out of that FaceTime. So that would be why you'd maybe want to go down something like WhatsApp or Zoom. Now, WhatsApp is really good with connecting with the younger audience. So if you've got younger family members or friends, then you're probably going to find that they're on WhatsApp. And again, it has the same capabilities as Facebook Messenger. You can use it for text, you can use it for chat, video, and audio calls. And then finally, you've got Zoom. And Zoom is really useful at the time of recording to speak to a larger group of people. So if you've got maybe 10 plus people that you like to connect with in a big group and see them all on your screen, then Zoom is an excellent tool to use that. There's a free account that you can use on Zoom. It allows you 40 minutes for a group call of something. I think the limit's up to 500 actually. Zoom also offers for free, you can get unlimited one-to-one options. And whilst we're on that, WhatsApp, FaceTime, and Messenger are all free of charge. So there's options there for everyone. What you really have to keep in mind what app that you're choosing is to make sure that who you're trying to connect with has the same app. So ask your friends or family, what app do you use? Then that's probably the app that you want to use as well. So I think that's it for me. We're going to hand over to James now.
Apologies whilst I find the unmute button there. Right, guys, so I'm going to cover some of the more security-based things in regards to getting some of our older relatives and indeed information for ourselves when being online. So firstly, hidden costs. How are you getting online and what are you connected to? Be conscious of the data plan for the device that you're using. So if you're connected to home or a wireless modem, like a BT Home Hub, that kind of thing, using the Wi-Fi, chances are that you're on an unlimited data plan and you can use the internet as much as you want without incurring a cost. But be certain of this, as it's not always 100% the case. If you're using a 4G, a 3G, or any other satellite connection, then chances are you're going to be using a limited data plan. Once you use that data up, you'll be charged for any additional data that you use. Most providers are pretty good at sending you a text to let you know that you're close to this limit. However, check with your provider that this is enabled. As an example, if you're going to be using the phone's data allowance to browse the internet or have a video call, and it only has that 1 gig of data allowance, it's not going to take an awfully long time for you to use up that 1 gig of data. 1 gig of data could be equated to around an hour-long Zoom video call, 200 songs, or 10 hours of general browsing on sort of internet web pages. So that if that 1 gig of data is a monthly allowance, you have to be aware that you will be using that up fairly quickly. So this is a wee factoid that I found when looking up information for this. In 2018, the BBC News reported that fraudsters scammed nearly 49,000 older people across the UK, which is roughly around 6 reports per hour. On top of that, it was also estimated that fraud costs the UK an estimated 10 billion Great British pounds per year, which is a bit of a staggering figure that seems to be on the rise. In regards to online fraud, police statistics evidence that in 2019, £190,000 was lost every day to cybercrime fraudsters. So, what can we do? First thing, keep your cards close to your chest. Unless absolutely necessary, unless you've logged on to purposefully go and purchase a particular item or service online, keep your personal details, including your bank card details, away from your presence online. Stick to reputable sites online when doing your shopping, like Amazon or Argos. You can use Google and online reviews to find out if a site is reputable before using it for any service. So the internet is host to a huge amount of information, be it music from 100 years ago or videos of cats sitting in boxes. And most of this information is free to access. The same can be said for all the essential online apps that we're encouraging you to use. So what Scott's mentioned, WhatsApp, FaceTime, Facebook, Zoom. You and your family can access all of these services free of charge. It's important to be aware that for some of these services, there are legitimate options to pay for particular functionalities. So for Zoom, if you want to have a group meeting longer than 40 minutes, you can pay for that. But for the limitations, if we recommend you use them, you won't need to pay for those services. So just bear that in mind. So who are you? Without recognizing a voice or a face online, there's no real way to verify the identity of the people that you're talking to. Be wary of people online. They're not necessarily who they say they are. Also, just because they know your name and say they're working for a particular company, it doesn't mean that they're trustworthy. So you may receive an email from somebody claiming to work for PayPal or a bank. If it's not something you expect, then you have a reason to doubt it. These illegitimate emails attempting to exploit you are called phishing emails, and they can often make their way through most email spam filters. Just because something's not in the junk box, don't believe it to be legitimate. So check the email address of the person sending it rigorously. You can see here in the bottom right of the slide an email taken from our CEO Colette. So this is somebody pretending to be Colette. If you inspect the email address closer, you can see that that is not an OGTC email address, and it's definitely not Colette. So just something to be aware of when looking at suspicious emails. So how do you know I am who I say I am? Well, you can see my face, you know my name, and you know I work for a company in Aberdeen called the OGTC. So you can go ahead and Google that information to see if it all checks out, and I am indeed who I say I am. So we are subject to scams our entire lives. We are taught from a very young age not to trust strangers, and this is no different in an online environment. Keep an eye out for scams claiming that apps you genuinely use are suddenly asking for a payment. So a common one is WhatsApp Gold, which is a scam claiming that you can now pay for added functionality in the popular chat app. A quick check online proves that this is in fact fraudulent, and the WhatsApp Gold installers that do exist on sort of app stores contain malware viruses. And as I've previously mentioned, you shouldn't be paying for anything without checking out what you're paying for first. Another very common one at the moment are scams around coronavirus. So on Friday, the 5th of June, it was reported that over £5 million was stolen due to this scam campaign around coronavirus. This could be by way of an email with a link claiming to hold urgent information and updates in regards to the pandemic. Or there's also been reports of criminals asking for people's personal information to access the NHS track and trace app. Just be aware of these things coming in and be skeptical of them. If you think that you or a loved one have been subject to a scam, then you can file a report at the website mentioned here, actionfraud.police.uk, or you can just indeed phone the phone number there as well. It's also a very handy resource to spot recent scams that are in circulation. They have a kind of running feed of the current things to be aware of. So how can we help? Firstly, just let seniors and family members know that you are there to help. Talk them through any suspicious things they may see online, and use your experience online and your ability to research issues along with the resources we provided to clear up any doubts you may have. Tell them about any online scams you may come across. Make them aware of Action Fraud Police UK, or indeed ourwatch.org.uk, which is the Neighbourhood Watch's website with a wealth of online safety information. Make them familiar with common risks and proper actions to take should they fall victim to them. And you can use websites as well, like silversurfers.com, to help our older relatives safely browse content on the web. Silversurfers.com is a one-stop shop of useful information and interesting articles aimed at the older generation. So it's a nice sort of gated online community for the older generation. So I encourage you to take a picture of this last slide, as we've put some sort of useful resources here. They're good resources for their purposes, and I hope you find a use for them. I would definitely recommend checking out Silver Surfers for the older generation. And that is me. Thank you, guys.
Wow, James and Scott, thank you very much. That was a huge amount of really useful information, and we hope that everybody who watches the video finds something in there, either information for themselves to help themselves get online safely, or perhaps to help your friends and family get online. You may want to watch this video again with them, or you may want to actually physically go and help them get online using some of the information we've shared here. I guess just because there was such a lot of information there, James and Scott, if you had to each pick out one key takeaway for people that have watched the video today, what would that be? I'll come to you first, Scott. You're smiling. You look like you have something in your mind.
I would just say don't be too afraid. Obviously, there's all these warnings that James put out on fraud and scams, but certainly when I speak to older family members, just from my own experience, they're scared of technology. So just letting the person that's maybe new to technology is trying to just help them by there's nothing to actually be afraid of, and friends and family are a really good resource when it comes to getting online and getting the help, asking them how how they do this, how do they do that on their tablet or whatever device they're going to use.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. It's all just about building up confidence, really, and you need to practice to get the confidence, like
Yeah.
anything else. That's a great piece of advice. And what about you, James? What would be your one key takeaway you'd want people to, if they forgot everything else, what would be the one thing you'd want them to remember from today?
Yeah, more or less echoing what Scott said. It really just kind of be cautious, but don't be afraid of things. You've got tools and resources out there to kind of set your mind at ease. So if you're feeling unsure about something, do a bit of research on it and just make sure that you are in fact doing what you think you are. There's various things out there to help us do that. So I think yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid of what's out there, but take steps to make sure you are doing what you think you are.
Great. Well, thank you, James. Thank you, Scott. Thanks for giving up your time to help us today. That's super. And thank you all, everybody who's watched today's video. If you've got any suggestions in terms of any other videos that you'd like us to help you with in terms of getting online safely or in terms of technology, we are a technology centre. We want to help people in our community. So if you've got any ideas, please send them to info, that's info, @theogtc.com. Thank you all very much, and hopefully we'll see you again sometime soon.